All right. Thank you, everybody, and it's good to see you here again. So I think this is our second session of فصل from the فصوص Al Hikam, if I'm not mistaken, right? So last time we kind of like talked about what was the relationship of the messenger, say Nuh alayhi salam, to this fuss and this cosmological degree, which is a degree that's closer to the world of the spirits and the intellect. And anyone who's closer to the world of the spirits and the angels experiences and embodies their state and hal. And so the state and hal of the angels is jealousy for God's sake, which is what Sayyidina Nuh alayhi salam had. And that this is overall a fuss of hayra, of bewilderment. So there's a lot going on in here. And last time we were talking about, of course, the problem of purifying God, especially if it's your God. What's it mean to do tanzih of God? And the problem of only doing tanzih, which is purification. The word means purification. The word means transcendence. The word means incomparability. That God is not like this and not like that. And you keep on negating the cosmos and the world from God until you come up with an image of blankness in your head, which in itself is a kind of tashbih. It is a kind of restriction of God. You just don't think of it that way. But that's exactly what it is. So you haven't escaped tashbih. You've just replaced one tashbih that you disliked with another kind of tashbih. You've not escaped tahdid, which is defining God, giving him a strict definition, and you've not escaped restriction. You've not escaped restricting him. You thought that you've made him absolute, but you actually didn't, right? And so for the Ahlul Haqa'iq, that is bad manners to reject tashbih, which is brought upon the tongues of the laws and the messengers, right? So this is what we talked about last time. And so we carry on, inshallah. And then we talked like there's like I found 4 ways to read this fuss, right? But we won't get into that right now. Inshallah, it'll come up later. But if really, the first part is a criticism of only sticking to tanzih. The second paragraph gets into the problem of why it's an issue if we only think of God in terms of tanzih, if we only think of him in terms of purification. So Ibn Arabi is going to continue criticizing that. And this is not to criticize, by the way, the discipline of kalam, because I think that some people were getting a bit uncomfortable with that last time. Kalam is an important discipline, but mind you, Shaykh al-Akbar at his time thought that like you need more than one mutakalam per country, literally. That's all you needed. He didn't think it was a discipline you needed so many people in. Um, but still, it has its role. And he criticizes the tendency of mutakallimun to go too far into tanzih and ignore tashbih, or to downplay tashbih, or to then even denigrate tashbih. Yeah, guys, if anyone's got your microphones on, please mute. Okay. So, okay. Then we carry on, inshallah, with the problem of only doing tanzih, purification. Can someone read this paragraph, please? So it starts from فَإِنَّ لِلْحَقِّ up to بِكُلِّ حَدٍّ.
I can read.
Who's that? Go ahead, ma'am. Yeah, bismillah.
Mom.
Exactly. Perfect. Thanks, ma'am. Perfect. All right, let's go.
فإن للحق في كل خلق ظهورا فهو الظاهر في كل مفهوم وهو الباطن عن كل فهم إلا عن فهم من قال إن العالم صورته وهويته وهو الاسم الظاهر كما أنه بالمعنى روح ما ظهر فهو الباطن فنسبته لما ظهر من صور العالم نسبة الروح المدبر للصورة فيؤخذ في حد الإنسان مثلا باطنه وظاهره فكذلك كل ملحوظ فالحق ملحوظ في كل حد.
Thank you so much, ma'am. How am I translating tashbih into English? Tashbih can mean similarity. It can mean likeness. I tend to think of it. It can also be translated as immanence. So you contrast transcendence with immanence, and if you say tanzih is incomparability, then tashbih is similarity. So you can render tashbih as immanence or similarity. I tend to use those two terms. It is literally to draw a likeness to someone or something. No, ma'am, what you read was perfect. Thank you so much. Okay, so he carries on. The implicit question in this beginning chapter, by the way, so the whole beginning of the chapter is a prologue, literally, to what's coming. It's a muqaddama to the main substance of the actual fuss. So we're still at the muqaddama. And it is if you want to really know God, there's two ways to know God, right? You can know God intellectually, or you can know God directly by dhawq, by ma'rifa, by tasting Him. But you can also know Him intellectually. So many people don't seem to either want to know Him by tasting, or can't do it, or not able to do it. So amongst the I guess you could call them the literati and the elite. Amongst the elite, the preferred method is to know God intellectually. So he's talking to the intellectual elite, right? So he says, if you want to know anything, right, if you're going to go by the intellectual route, right, you have to know its definition. And the definition tends to be comprised of something that's outward and inward, very simply, right? So we'll get to that in a second. So he says, فَإِنَّ لِلْحَقِّ فِي كُلِّ خَلْقٍ ظُهُورًا. Wow. He says, the real, so God has in each creature, in each creation, a luhura, which is close to manifestation. This is more like an emergence, an appearance. God has in each creation the ability to manifest Himself in that creation, right? In the outward sense. Because in the previous line, we were talking about how He is apparent in the outward sense of revelation. And it's just an incredible line. فإن الحق في كل خلق ظهورا. Kind of like a phantom, a specter. You don't see it with your physical eye, but it's Him. When you look at something, it is Him. When you look at the sun, and those are my class from last week, we looked at Ibn Arabi's meeting with the sun worshippers. Why do they worship the sun? Because they see a divine aspect in the sun. If you look at a turtle, a penguin, the beach, the ocean, you are always looking at the divine name, Allah, the outward, the manifest, and it's God Himself in His aspect as the outward. Now, how do you identify Him? How do you see Him with the eye of the heart? That requires an unveiling, right? This is why Ibn Arabi, and you'll come to this later on in the Fuss, he talks about the meaning of money. What's money in Arabic? Mal, right? So wealth is mal. Mal, and the plural is amwal. Mal wal banun, wealth and children. Those two always go together in the Quran. Mal wal banun. So the meaning of mal goes to the root meaning of the word mail, which is to incline. You see, you love your wealth because you incline towards it, right? By its very nature, it makes it kind of like magnetically attracts you, right? You very naturally incline towards that thing, which is what makes it your man, the thing you are drawn close to, like gold and silver and commodities, right? So he often connects mal and amwal to our beliefs, اعتقادات, our اعتقادات. It's what we incline towards because that's what we see God in. We see God in the form of our own belief, and so we love it and we're drawn towards it. So our beliefs are actually our wealth, right? So that's a really interesting analogy that he makes. And so that's why he says in a part, in one chapter in the Futuhat al-Makkiyah, if you want to find God, where can you find God? Yes, God is found more likely with the poor people. But because Rasulullah came with the all-encompassing Sharia, he can be found anywhere. That's why it's from his adab not to reject anyone, and not even the rich man, because the rich man tends to be a veil over God. But if this person with wealth, he can perceive God behind the veil of his wealth, you will find God, because behind the mal is the one you incline towards, you have mail towards. So then Shaykh Al-Akbar says, Subhanallah, glory be to the one who can become manifest in any object whatsoever, right? And can be found in any object of wealth whatsoever, right? So it's an extraordinary theology, if you like, metaphysical, spiritual theology. And so that's the connection between wealth and i'tiqadat, that thing you incline towards. Now, belief systems is going to be like a really key theme in this chapter. Belief systems, al-i'tiqadat. And so we're talking, and one, there's lots of ways to think about how we can talk about belief systems. But one way to think about them is in terms of tanzih and tashbih. So you can think of each belief system in the world like as a combination between different building blocks of tanzih and different building blocks of tashbih. So even if you adhere to a religion or a philosophy that strongly inclines towards tanzih, it's never devoid of some tashbih. And even if you practice like a cult or a local custom religion that inclines very strongly towards tashbih, it's never devoid of some kind of tanzih, right? So that's a really useful way of thinking, conceptualizing belief systems. فإن الحق في كل خلق ظهورا. He is the manifest in each thing you see in creation. فهو ظاهر في كل مفهوم. So he is what becomes apparent and the outwardly manifest in each thing that is understood, whether it's in Revelation or in this world. And this world, the cosmos, is a book that is a transcription of the Quran itself. And the Quran is a transcription of the cosmos. Each one is a transcription of the other. So you got the book of the cosmos and the book of Revelation. The third book is the book of the soul. Each one is a transcription of the other. So whether we're talking about the cosmos or the Revelation, it's the same thing. He is the apparent in what is understood in each thing, whether it's the ayat of the Quran or the lines of the cosmos. وهو الباطن عن كل فهم, and he is the one who is the inward or hidden from each understanding, right? Such that whatever you see, which is ظاهر, God is so blindingly manifest, you can't see him. He's right before your very eyes. He's so clearly manifest, you don't notice that he's there. But he's also so hidden, you'll never ever find him. And that's the bottom of it. You'll never ever grasp him, no matter how much you seek him. That's the bottom. إلا, he says, except, إلا عن فهم من قال, except according to the understanding of the one who says, إن العالم, the cosmos, is his surah and his huwiyya. The cosmos is his form and it is his identity, which is one way you could translate huwiyya. Huwiyya is given the bulky, awkward translation, ipseity. Ipseity just means his he-ness. Like literally in Arabic, we love this thing we do, his huwiyya, ananiya, right? It's the thing that makes him he. The cosmos, like whenever you point to him, he, right? He can be found in the cosmos. When you point to it in the cosmos, it's him. That's his هوية. Cosmos is ultimately him, and in its inwardness and in his outward form, it's him. It's his form. So if I use the word form, surah, if this will confuse some Arabic speakers, surah doesn't just mean image and picture. It can mean, but in philosophy, surah means the form of something, which contains its meaning. So if I say we are talking about the physical world, then the surah of the physical world is like my physical corporeal body that contains the spirit, right? If we talk about the spiritual world, the surah that's found in the spiritual world are the meanings, right? They're called supra-rational meanings, spiritual meanings. So that's what it means. It's not just a picture. It's the form that contains a meaning. وهو الاسم الظاهر كما أنه بالمعنى روح ما ظهر فهو الباطن. God is what you see of the outward form of the cosmos, that's his surah, but he's also the spirit underlying the cosmos that animates it. So without the ruh to animate the cosmos, it has no meaning. It's not empty and void. God can manifest himself to you as empty and void if he wants to, but that's not what it is in reality. الأمر في النفس. فنسبته لما ظهر من صور العالم نسبة الروح المدبر للصورة. So his relationship to what appears to you from the forms of the cosmos is the same relationship as what's called the governing spirit to the outward form of the body. So our body is made up of a number of components and limbs, let's say. But what moves the body? The limbs themselves? No. There's a spirit in our theology, anyways, right? There is a governing spirit that directs the body towards certain actions under our command. That's the same analogy with God and the cosmos. The cosmos is his form, and whatever you see happening in the cosmos, that's him doing it. He is the spirit behind whatever happens in the cosmos, directing it, like a director on stage in a theater. This is called توحيد لا فعل. لا فاعل إلا الله. There is no doer of an action but him. Whenever you see someone doing something, he's the one doing it, right? Takes you back to Ash'ari theology, kalam, that God is the one who creates actions. We can't create actions. We have what's called kasab. We earn the actions, but we can't make them. He's the one who makes them. So فيؤخذ في حد الإنسان مثلا باطنه وظاهره. So if you want to understand the definition of a human being as one example, you take his inwardness and his outwardness. You cannot understand a human being fully unless you take both aspects into account. Otherwise, you don't have a clear definition for what a human being is. So that's one example of how you arrive at a definition of something. So then how do we arrive at a definition of God? And I know this talk is kind of dry, I apologize for that, but he's setting you up for the drama. Yes, there's going to be a lot of spiritual drama in Homer style in what's coming up when we get to the parts of the story of the people of Noah. But he's setting you up. So it requires just like a little bit of patience. فكذلك كل محدود فالحق محدودا بكل حد. It's the same thing for everything that's defined. And God himself, the real himself, is defined by every definition because he's the identity of every definition. So anything you define, whether it's a human being or something else, he is that thing. He is that definition. وصور العالم. Okay, maybe we'll get one person to read this then. Then I think, okay, we'll start with صور العالم and we'll stop at the bottom where it says عرف ربه. Okay, who wants to take a stab at that? By the way, guys, just before I move on, I wanted to mention this last time.
I'll try.
منيرة? Okay, اتفضلي. Go ahead.
شكرا. وصور العالم لا تنضبط ولا يحاط بها ولا تعلم حدود كل صورة منها إلا على قدر ما حصل لكل عالم من صوره. فكذلك يجهل حد الحق، فإنه لا يعلم حده إلا بعلم حد كل صورة، وهذا محال حصوله. فحد الحق محال.
Exactly. Yeah.
وكذلك من شبهه وما نزهه فقد قيده وحدده وما عرفه. ومن جمع في معرفته بين التنزيه والتشبيه ووصفه بالوصفين على الإجمال، لأنه يستحيل ذلك على التفصيل لعدم الإحاطة بما في العالم من الصور. لعدم الإحاطة بما في العالم من الصور، فقد عرفه مجملا لا على التفصيل، كما عرف نفسه مجملا لا على التفصيل. ولذلك ربط النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم معرفة الحق بمعرفة النفس، فقال: من عرف نفسه عرف ربه. وقال
No, that just up to there. But Munira, that was beautiful. That was beautiful.
Okay, thank you.
That was really beautiful reading. Thank you so much, Munira.
Thank you.
Perfect. Okay, so the other thing I wanted to mention last time, but I don't know why I forgot it, is what's the other issue with dismissing tashbih out of hand. So if you read the book, it's called Me and Rumi. It's about Shamsuddin Tabrizi and Rumi, but it's actually the early records of his own interactions with Rumi. So it's a very valuable resource. It's translated by Chittik. It's a very, very valuable document. So one of the things Shamsuddin mentions is, and he's making fun of, lampooning, satirizing. He's giving an example of a man telling someone God's there, you can't do tashbih of God because it's haram and it leads to treating God inappropriately and to damaging his majesty and to insulting his majesty. And so someone in the crowd jumps up and says, you've made God gone from our world and you've made him lost, so you go get lost too. Let me see if I can find the exact quote. He tore his clothes and began shouting, God forbid, get lost from this world, just as you have made our God lost from this world. That's the essence of the problem of dismissing tashbih, which is fantastic. You are thereby dismissing God's presence in the world, which is part of revelation. Very simply. So that's the importance of tashbih. So he carries on. وصور العالم لا تنضبط ولا يحاط بها ولا تعلم حدود كل صورة منها. The forms of the world cannot be tandabitu. Now, the word tandabit means to seize or apprehend something, but it means to grasp something. And then once you grasp it, you kind of like harmonize it. You arrange it in a certain kind of order once you have grasped it, right? But he's saying that the forms of the world cannot be grasped or encompassed. Well, and their definitions, the limits, the boundaries of the forms are not known. Of each form, it's not known, except to the extent إلا على قدر ما حصل لكل عالم من صوره, except to the extent of what is obtained in each world with regard to its forms. So we know that I can give a definition about the physical world insofar as only physical objects pertain to the physical world. Now, yes, it intermixes with the spiritual world. But if I'm going to talk about simply definitions, we know that physical objects belong to the physical world. Spiritual objects belong to the spiritual world. That we can talk about with regard to each form. But can you definitively exhaust the forms of each world? Not really. And the problem of knowing something is you have, if you want to define it, you have to know its outward and inwardness. But you can never exhaust the outward forms of anything. So how are you ever going to give definition to these worlds? Like a clear and precise definition that captures it. لا تنضبط. You can't seize it and then give order to it. فكذلك يجهل حضور حقه. Likewise, God is unknown in that sense. He cannot be known. In terms of being given a definition, you cannot give definition to God. فإنه لا يعلم حده, because his definition, his boundaries, which is how definitions are made. What is the boundary of a thing? The boundary of God is unknown. So the definition of God is unknown. إلا yes. إلا بعلم حد كل صورة. Now, we said that God's form is the cosmos. God's form is the cosmos, right? In terms of being a dhahir. So if you wanted to know the definition of God, you would have to know the definition and the boundary of each form. And that's impossible. وهذا محال. هذا محال حصوله. You can't get there. فحد الحق محال. So the definition of God is impossible. And that's even when we're talking about just the outward form. And then by definition, the inward dimension of God is by definition unseen. You will never grasp the inward definition. So outwardly, we can't know God. Inwardly, we can't know him either. I mean, in terms of definition, you cannot define God outwardly. You cannot define God inwardly. So you can't define God. Right? And that becomes the problem of trying to purify him and say, I can give him a definition through purification. You can't. Because if you really wanted to identify God, you'd have to know the forms of the cosmos in their totality, and you can't. وكذلك من شبهه, and likewise, now we go to the other end and criticize people who only do tashbih. وكذلك من شبهه, the one who only sees God as a likeness to something else. ومن نزهه, and he doesn't do transcendence, and he doesn't purify God. He only sees God as something similar and only does immanence. وقد قيده, he has restricted him. وحدده, and he's also obviously defined him. وما عرفه, and he has not known him. Because you say that God is this thing. I mean, like a simple example is to say that like God is the he is the reincarnation in Jesus Christ, for example, and that's basically it. Or in the Catholic Catechism, he's the Supreme Spirit. Done. That's wrong according to us. Obviously, the first one, and obviously the second one. He's not there's spirits, and he's the Supreme Spirit. No, that is wrong. You've given definition, and you've not known him. So, what is the solution? To know something and its definition, you have to know outward and inward. So, therefore, so who puts them together? وَمَنْ جَمَعَ فِي مَعْرِفَتِهِ, who brings them together in his knowledge. And by the way, what's Jama'? What's Jama'? Jama' is Quran, and we'll come to that later on. Just bear that in mind. Jama' is Quran. And who brings them together in his knowledge between tanzih and tashbih, and describes God, وَوَصَفَهُ بِالْوَصْفَيْن, and describes God with both descriptions, right? But he gives you a caveat. عَلَى إِجْمَال. What's عَلى إِجْمَال? In general. So you can give God a general definition, but not in detail. Because لأنه يستحيل ذلك على التفصيل لعدم الإحاطة بما في العالم من الصور. Because it is impossible to know in detail each object in the cosmos, because we can't encompass. Because if you think about it, the cosmos is finite insofar as it was made by God. It has a beginning and it has to have an end. But the cosmos is an object of God's knowledge. Yes or no? It is, right? And what is God's knowledge? Infinite. So the cosmos is temporally originated, is huduth with regard to its creation. But with regard to God's knowledge of it, it's actually infinite. If God wanted to continue to create and bring into the cosmos more objects and more objects, it will never stop. So therefore, since God's knowledge is infinite, the object of his knowledge is also infinite. But not in terms of being made. So because of that, you can never know the cosmos in its entirety, which means, therefore, you can never know God in his entirety. But we can give a general definition about the cosmos. And likewise, you can do the same with God when you bring tanzih and tashbih together, right? لعدم الإحاطة, because you can't encompass the cosmos. And by definition and by extension, you obviously cannot encompass God. بما في العالم من الصور فقد عرفه مجملا. So you know it or God comprehensively, in summation, synthetically, generally. لا على تفصيل, not in detail. I know each and every object of the cosmos, and therefore each and every object of God's knowledge. Impossible. Only God has that. لا على تفصيل. كما عرف نفسه مجملا. Just like you kind of like know yourself in general. Like if I wanted to describe what is the outward form of a biological human being, we can come to a reasonably satisfying definition. And we could say the same inwardly as well, even though I find it very hard to know myself inwardly, personally speaking, right? But بس لا على تفصيل. But can you know you can know yourself in general, but can you know yourself in all your detail? Every single thing about you? You can't. I find that impossible. Can you really know yourself absolutely and completely? Not really. Right? And that's just common sense. ولذلك ربط النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم معرفة الحق بمعرفة النفس. That's why Rasulullah, he tied knowledge of God to knowledge of yourself because of the correspondence in that respect. You can't know God in all his totality, and you can't know yourself in all your totality. It will never happen. Sense. Therefore, he said, من عرف نفسه عرف ربه. Or you could say, من عرف نفسه فقد عرف ربه. He who knows himself, therefore knows his Lord. And that's absolutely true. Are you ever going to know yourself? No. Are you ever going to completely know your Lord? No. If you know yourself in general, you can also know who your Lord is in general. It's a perfect formula. And that's for the one who brings tanzih and tashbih together, and that's called correct ma'rifah of God. Anything else? The person, his eyesight is lopsided. He is, what's the other word? Cross-eyed, or blind in one eye. Yeah? If you only see God with tanzih, or you only see God with tashbih, right? This is how you know God, and this is how you know yourself. You are inward and outward, and he is inward and outward, right? And this is the proof is in this ayah, right? Who would like to carry on reading وقال, and then we will stop at لا بالحقيقة, which means the end of that paragraph. Otherwise, I will do it, and I will take a turn.
I can read if nobody wants to read.
Okay, Bismillah.
Okay.
Munira, go ahead. If you are muted, we can't hear you.
Okay, sorry, I started reading with mute.
Mute, yeah, it's okay.
وقال سنريهم آياتنا في الآفاق وهو ما خرج عنك وفي أنفسهم.
But that is incorrect. I don't know why my script has that. وفي أنفسهم.
I thought, yes, it doesn't
Yes.
sound right.
No.
وهو عينك حتى يتبين لهم أي للناظر أنه الحق. فصلت 53 هاي فصلت إيش يعني؟
فصلت, yes. Yes.
إيش اللي فصلت؟
ولا شيء. That's the name of the surah.
أوكي sorry.
عادي.
من حيث إنك صورته وهو روحك.
روحك, yes.
روحك فأنت له كالصورة الجسمية لك وهو لك كالروح المدبر لصورة جسدك. والحد يشمل الظاهر والباطن منك، فإن الصورة الباقية إذ زال عنها الروح المدبر لها لم يبقى إنسانا، ولكن يقال فيها إنها صورة تشبه صورة الإنسان، فلا فرق بينها وبين صورة من خشب أو حجارة، ولا ينطلق عليها اسم إنسان إلا بالمجاز لا بالحقيقة. يعني أنا كتير حابة هالتصوير التفسير.
It's amazing, isn't it?
It's amazing.
It's
يعني
really
أنا أول
incredible.
مرة فهمته مزبوط، عمالي هقراه بس مش قادرة في مخي. هلا I can see the sense in this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Munira, it's always like that with Ibn Arabi. You have to read like many times before something sinks in.
Yeah. I am. Okay. Thank you.
But it's worth the effort.
Yeah.
So it really is an incredible paragraph, subhanAllah. The entire fuss is actually. And so he says that what? Right. What you are to God, it's the same as what your outward body is to your governing spirit. So God is the one who moves, who animates you. He's your governing spirit, and you're the means by which he moves things, right? I'm tempted to use the word puppet, but I'm not going to say puppet, right? But it's kind of close to that. And then he says, well, let's go back to the beginning. So he quotes the verse, we shall show them our signs in the horizons, right? Which means everything that's around you, outside of you, that's the cosmos. And in yourselves, that's your very entity. And so, that ayah verse is all encompassing because there's only what's outside you and you. So we will show him our signs outside himself and inside himself until it becomes clear to him, to the Nazir, who is the thinker, who is the rational thinker, or the one who's contemplating this issue, that he is the truth, that God is the real, but also what? إنه you are God. You are God. إنه هو, you are God. Because there's nothing but God. Your outward form, right? And your inward form. Your inward form is his huwiyah. And what's called outward, that's the outward forms of the cosmos, that's his outward form. من حيث, from the perspective, إنك صورته, you are his form, وهو روحك, and he's your spirit. Again, from the perspective, you إنك صورته, you are his outward form, and هو روحك, and he is your spirit, but you don't perceive him. I can dig in deep as much as I want to for infinity, I'll never find him, but that's what he is. So هو من حيث أنك صورته من اسمه الظاهر وهو روحك من حيث اسمه الباطن. فأنت له كالصورة الجسمية. Right? لك. You are to him like the form of your body is to لك وهو لك كالروح المدبر. Okay. فأنت له كالصورة الجسمية لك. He is to you what your bodily form is to you. وهو لك, and he is to you, or rather you are to him, I guess, like what the governing spirit is to that bodily form. والحد يشمل الظاهر والباطن. And so this definition, this defining boundary, includes the outward and the inward, which is what constitutes a proper definition. والباطن منك فإن الصورة الباقية, right, إذا زال عنها الروح المدبر لها لم يبقى إنسان ولكن يقال. So if your spirit, like when you die, it becomes clear that the spirit is what was governing your body. Because when you die, what happens to your body? It resembles nothing more than a piece of wood or a rock. That's it. Your body undergoes what is called petrification. And petrification means you become as hard as a log. That's what it is. Right? The owner of the house has left and gone to someplace else. The cosmos is like that. It needs God to animate it. If he were not there to animate it, the cosmos would be an empty piece of log, right? A dead animal. And I do think Ibn Arabi is implicitly using some Neoplatonic ideas, but I don't want to get into that right now. ولا ينطلق عليها اسم إنسان إلا بالمجاز. So when a person dies, you cease to call him a human being, except just by way of metaphor, just by way of courtesy. But it's not. But is it really a human being? It's not, because the spirit is gone. That's why, of course, we go back to false Adam alayhi salam. When the last human being, and falshif, when the last human being, who's a real human being, passes away in the cosmos, the human being, this holy prophet, holy saint, he is the heart of the whole cosmos. Or she, by the way, or she. If he or she dies, then the whole cosmos breaks apart. Because he or she was the animating spirit of the entire cosmos. And so if he or she dies, the cosmos becomes an empty log. And then it disintegrates. And that's why it transfers to the next realm, which is the akhirah. Good. So we can carry on here, I think. Although we're approaching the end of our time. But I think we're good to go to the end of the page, I think. I'm going to just stop and check in on everyone. How's it going so far? CD Petro, you're more than welcome to try. Sorry, guys. If my connection ever becomes unstable, just type it for me in the chat or let me know. Yeah, are there any questions so far? Any thoughts? SubhanAllah, Yusha, that's a really interesting point. It's now proven that human bodies radiate light, photons, and ceases to do after death. Yeah, I think I came across that idea as well. Allahu A'lam.
I think the idea of this relationship with Allah and with the cosmos, and then like how we're talking about how if one knows themselves and they know in general, then they know their Lord in general. It's kind of like it reminds me of the saying by I believe it's Sayyidina Ali radiallahu anhu, of how like within you think yourself something small, but within you is enfolded the entire universe. And it's like, yeah, you can't know everything because you also can't know how you are in Allah's Aina Sabita. So you don't know all the possibilities, neither in the cosmos nor even in yourself, no matter how
Yes.
much you know yourself. But at the
Yes.
same time, it's like there's so many points of contact still that you can, like more than you would think, just by the sheer virtue of like how much is inside you. I think like for personal development and like growth and healing and all that, like this is so pertinent. Like this is hitting really close to home for me right now. So it's just really interesting.
Yeah, alhamdulillah. And it is interesting. If you try and go up in the cosmos as much as you can, all you'll get is dispersion. And you'll just keep going farther away, farther away, farther away from God. How are you going to find Him? And you go deep, deep, deep inside yourself. You go deep inside, deep inside, deep inside. You'll also get lost. You get lost if you go outwardly up. You'll get lost if you go inwardly down. Where are you going to find Him? That's Hira. That's this chapter. Could you elaborate more on the horizons and the soul in the ayat mentioned here? How exactly do they differ from each other? Because the horizons is the cosmos. The soul is you, right? I've heard some explanations that the horizon is somehow a reflection of our souls. Well, the cosmos is a reflection of your soul because the cosmos is one book, your soul is the second book, and each one is a transcription of the other and a reflection of the other. So, correct. Well, except the difference is what's in the cosmos is infinitely dispersed and separated. But what is in your soul is infinitely brought together and concentrated. That's the difference. So when you're looking at the cosmos, you're actually looking at yourself. And that brings us back to Fuss what? Fuss?
Adam?
Sheath, right? Because whatever you're looking at is yourself, right? Yes, dispersion versus concentration. And also Fuss Adam, but Fuss sheath because whatever you're seeing outside is you. Whatever you're seeing outside is you.
مش he
And the,
tells the prophet that you thought you were fighting ولا وما رميت and it's God who was throwing.
no, that ayah is Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam.
كيف? How is that?
هذه آية تتكلم عن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم.
عن صورة إيش؟
لا، عن رسول الله محمد
عن رسول
محمد
الله
ايه صلى الله عليه وسلم.
رسول الله بقول له وما رميت يعني عم بحكيه بقول له فكرت إنك أنت اللي هجمت بس هي God who was doing that.
Yeah, but you know that's exactly it, Munira. And that's an interesting verse that you picked. You did not throw when you threw, but God threw. That's
Right.
a verse of Hayra as well. Because
Yeah.
who's doing the throwing?
Right, exactly. Yeah.
You see, Yusha, you did not throw when you threw, but God threw.
Yes.
That is a wonderful verse example of Hayra. And maybe we should come back to it later on. So, Irvina, I don't know if that answered your question, right? But that's the difference between the horizons and the souls, right? Yeah, let me know if it didn't make sense. Okay. So I can do this section then. I guess we're here, right? Okay. So I'm gonna try and do to the end of the page. And then we can call it a day, because then we come to the actual story of Sayyid Nuh and how does the Muqaddimah apply to the actual story. And we'll get into that in 2 weeks' time, inshallah, next time. So let's do this. وصور العالم لا يمكن زوال الحق عنها أصلا فحد الألوهية له بالحقيقة لا بالمجاز كما هو حد الإنسان إذا كان حيا وكما أن ظاهر صورة الإنسان تثني بلسانها على روحها ونفسها والمدبر لها كذلك جعل الله صور العالم تسبح بحمده ولكن لا يفقه تسبيحهم لأن لا نحيط بما في العالم من الصور فالكل ألسنة الحق ناطقة بالثناء على الحق ولذلك قال الحمد لله. This is called لام. الحمد لله رب العالمين أي إليه ترجع عواقب الثناء فهو المثني والمثنى عليه. Right. I'll do the poem in a second, actually. So, the forms, the cosmos, right? لا يمكن زوال الحق عنها أصلا. The forms of the cosmos cannot be removed from God at all, because He is them. Right? You're trying to do tanzih. How are you going to do tanzih? He is them. فحد الألوهية له بالحقيقة لا بالمجاز. So the definition of divinity, right, with regard to Him and with regard to the cosmos is real. It's not metaphorical. كما هو حد الإنسان إذا كان حيا, just as He, God, is the definition of man when man is alive, of course. وكما أن ظاهر صورة الإنسان تثني بلسانها على روحها ونفسها. And so the outward form of the human being, right, is what? تثني بلسانها على روحها. It is with its tongue, it is praising its spirit. The body of the human being is praising its spirit with the movement. Each movement that the spirit makes with the body, that is an implicit praise of the spirit, no matter what. And also, by the way, your outward body actually does praise. Subhanallah, subhanallah, like your nails and your hair, the hair on your head, the nails on your fingers, your skin. It's always doing tasbihat, right? But you just don't understand it. But it is an implicit, right, truth that the spirit moves the body. So when it does that, the body is praising the spirit. That is its praise of the spirit, no matter what. Right? على روحها ونفسها والمدبر لها. كذلك جعل الله صور العالم تسبح بحمده. Likewise, whatever forms God creates in the cosmos are praising Him. But you just don't understand their praise. You don't understand their tasbihat, their glorification. Each thing in the cosmos is glorifying the spirit that is animating it. Who is God? He is the one animating it. Just by its existing, it glorifies Him. Just by it existing. ولكن لا يفقهوا تسبيحه, but you can't understand their tasbihat because we لا نحيط بما في العالم من الصور, because we don't encompass all the forms that exist in the cosmos. If we could encompass them, we could understand their praise, but we can't. So you don't know the praise of every single object of the cosmos because you can't encompass every single object in the cosmos. So you'll never understand the praise of the cosmos in its entirety, but in general you can. فالكل ألسنة الحق ناطقة ناطقة. So every single thing is speaking about the real and is the tongue. Every single thing is God's tongue. Every single thing is God's tongue articulating, speaking His praise. So what is God doing? He is praising Himself. It is God who is the praiser, and He is the one being praised. Every time you say, I love this food, God is the one saying, I love this food, and He's the one saying it, and He's the one being praised. Every single time you say, thank you, God, for this house, God is the one doing the thanking, and he's the one being thanked. ولذلك قال, it's because of this he said, الحمد لله رب العالمين. So if you translate that literally, because Ibn Arabi is of course a literalist by now, I hope everyone gets that. Normally you read the ayah saying all praise is due to God, which is true, Lord of the worlds, which is true. But it's not just that he deserves to be praised. Every single hamd, every single praise you are doing goes back to him. Alhamdu, so alif lam, alhamd, it's called alif lam ta'rif. All the praise you can do in the entire world, li, it goes to God. You say, I love you, I love this, I love that. He's beautiful, she's beautiful. He's so skilled, she's skilled. All you're doing is praising God, no matter what. He's a fantastic cook. You're talking about God. He's an amazing runner. You're talking about God. He's a very witty orator. He's a very clever politician. You're talking about God. Every single time. It's all about him. أي إليه ترجع عواقب الثناء. The عواقب, I'll think of how to translate, but it's the ramifications of praise. It all goes back to him. فهو المثني والمثنى عليه. So he is the one who is praising, and he's the one being praised. Hence, God is the only agent. Yes, that is correct. So, then we'll do this poem. Therefore, فإن قلت بالتنزيه كنت مقيدا. So if you are professing, قلت here is not just to say, but you're professing the doctrine of tanzih, you are restricting him. وإن قلت بالتشبيه كنت محددا. And if you're professing the doctrine of tashbih, you are restricting him to a definition. وإن قلت بالأمرين كنت مسددا. But if you are professing both of them, you have hit the mark. كنت إماما في المعارف سيدا. You are a leader in knowledge of the fair. You are a master. فمن قال بالإشفاع كان مشركا actually. And the one who says, talks about duality, what's called the even number, you know, there's me and there's God, he is being an idolater, a polytheist. I'm sorry, would you excuse me just 1 second, please? Guys, thank you very much for bearing with me. Okay, let's finish this up then. Okay. ومن قال بالأفراد كان موحدا. And whoever is talking about God being singular and simply talks about his uniqueness, then he's someone who does tawheed. But he's also someone who's making things one, right? And excluding God's multiplicity. So that's not right either. So he says, فإياك وتشبيه إن كنت ثانيا. So beware of doing tashbih if you are someone who only sees things in terms of duality. إن كنت ثانيا. وإياك التنزيه. And beware of doing tanzih if you are someone إن كنت مفردا. If you are someone who makes things one and unique. Right? فما أنت هو. Now, I don't know why it's written this way, because the editor of this book is copying the manuscript. This is how it's written in the manuscript, but it means هو. فما أنت هو بل أنت هو وتراه في عين الأمور مصرحا أو مصرحا ومقيدا. So you are not him, or no, rather you are him, and you see him في عين الأمور, in the very essence of things, or as the same as all things, bewitched, musarrihan, as if as if someone has cast a spell on you, like a sorcerer. Musarrihan or muqayyidan, right? Bewitched, and actually, there's two ways to read musarrihan here, actually, but I need to go back and double check what's the second way to read it. أما كونهما مفعولين هي مطلقا. Okay, so مصرحا can actually be مطلقا, right? So بل فأنت هو وتراه, and you see him in, yes, so you see him in all things as being absolute and restricted. مصرحا is actually a play on words. It's like someone who's being bewitched by sorcery, but also it means to be absolute. So he's playing on the words. Someone who is, so you see God as being absolute, and you see him as being restricted. Not just absolute and not just restricted. You see him as being both. Yes, let's call it a night here. And this is where we start with Qawm Nuh. And this is where it gets very, very interesting. Any questions? Thank you, guys. Allah yabarak fikum. If any questions strike your mind, then
Thank you. May I ask where I can get the Arabic version? This لأنه أنا عندي واحد.
yeah.
It's not the same.
ما في حركات صح؟
لا مش بس هيك كمان it's different. I liked what's written here more than what was written. I like it better as a version.
Okay, so
هذا مكتوب بقلم أبو العلا العفيفي.
No. So Abu Ala Afifi has mistakes.
وبعدين في شيء هذا today يعني this is what I read also today.
Yeah.
It really gave me an insight, a question بعدين I'll share that I was asking all the time. So I liked it. I'd rather have the one that
Yeah. And please share your insights in the chat room as well, Munira. But this version, it's actually a Turkish version. So the name of the editor, his name is, I don't remember right now, Mahmoud Kilish. So I got this.
I find here at the هون بالمكتبة.
لا, you're not gonna find it here.
Thank you.
You're not gonna find it in Amman. I'll ask around where you can get it, because they're not easy copies to get, Munira. It's not easy. But I have another copy. I will send it to you. It's the latest edition of the Fusus with Harakat. I'll send it to you. Tell me if you like it, okay? I'll send you one other one.
But I want the same sentences. يعني I don't want a different interpretation.
No. It's gonna be like 99% the same, inshallah.
Okay. بعدين, I'm very bad with the computer. Every time I come very late and I don't know how to connect. So please, I will need all the... Hello?
Yeah. No, I'm here.
I will need all